Well, hello, this is Cindy, your host at Ask Cindy Connector. Make sure that you go to TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. So, a little bit about the show. I love connecting, and about 10 years ago, one of my friends started calling me Ask Cindy Connector. So, 3 years ago, I started the Facebook page where I would share any kind of specials, if anyone's having an event, any kind of product updates. So, I would share that. And about a little over 2 months ago, I decided to do a video podcast. Why not get more information out to the masses? So we actually are live here on YouTube and Facebook. And also a little plug for National Day Calendar. It is Heavenly Hash Day, Tater Tot Day, and Groundhog Day. Make sure that you go to nationaldaycalendar.com. And today I have my friend Kevin, so he's going to tell us a little bit about his website and his brand. But first off, Kevin, tell us all about you and your story. How did you get started in your amazing industry?
Well, I say that I'm living my second life and that this life should be lived outside of my comfort zone. I think I was in my panic zone for the first life, which is like go to school, have kids, get married, have kids, build a business. And that sort of traditional North American journey where you're on your way and then before you know it, you get someplace and you're not sure that that's where you wanted to go. So I was living that very traditional life up until about 5 years ago. And about 5 years ago, I made a big change in my life. After 30 years of being in a relationship with my wife, I left my relationship and I moved across the country. I'm Canadian from Toronto. I moved to Vancouver and gave away 80% of what I owned and started new because I thought it was probably something I should have done maybe 30 years earlier. Some might call that a midlife crisis. For me, it was a midlife awakening. And that started me on the journey that I'm on now. And now I focus in two areas. I'm a business coach to women entrepreneurs, and I am primarily a life coach to men who are going through transitions in their life, divorce, major life-changing events, and I coach them through things because I probably can relate to most of the things they've gone through. So I sort of they say in coaching, you're really coaching into yourself most of the time. You're using your own life experiences as part of your coaching approach. So that's what I do. And I'm thrilled to be on your broadcast. And you have such a great sense of humor. I knew it would be light and fun today.
Well, let me see if I can actually reshare this broadcast really quick. Okay, I'm just going to go right to my personal page. And then tomorrow, actually, I'll do a watch party, and then you'll get more exposure so people can get more information and get to your brand. So, first off, let's talk about the 5 love languages and how it's really important to know your love language.
So the love languages, everybody talks about the love languages. And, guys say that their gal goes, hey, have you done your love language quiz? We should really do the love language quiz. And he's like, what? You like, what? The love language quiz. And then he does it. And then you get the results. It's like, oh, that was kind of cool. So for any guy, do the quiz. It's kind of fun. And it asks you questions that you've probably never been asked before. But it's really simple. It's like, what's the way in which you show your love and what sort of lights you up when somebody speaks to you or treats you a certain way? And if you know that, you're probably halfway along in terms of being able to be figuring out if you're compatible with the person you're spending time with. Because if the kind of things you do that you think are fun and great and amazing they don't land for your partner, and the kind of things that you're looking for from your partner, they don't even come to top of mind, you may actually care about each other, but you're probably not going to feel real happy with each other. The compatibility level is probably good, but the fun level is probably fairly low. And so there are 5 of them. Do you remember the 5?
I actually know the words of affirmation and acts of service. Those are my higher
Okay.
one. And I love sending gifts, but I still score very low on that area.
So you got your 5. You've got one which you just mentioned, words of affirmation. So that's mine. Another one is physical touch. That's also mine. Then you get to quality time is in there. Acts of service and gifts. So pretty straightforward. Quality time. Hey, what are you doing tonight? I'm spending time with you, girl. Oh, that's fun. Let's just hang out, watch some TV, and make some dinner together. as opposed to it's like I'd love to have some time with it, but I get a really busy week. But maybe we'll catch up on Sunday for an hour. We'll go to the beach. It's like if the quality time is yours, that probably doesn't do the job. Physical touch, it's like you want to put your hands on each other. You're hugging, you're holding hands. As opposed to I feel really uncomfortable holding hands in public. It makes me feel really, it's like that's probably not a good sign. Words of affirmation, pretty straightforward. You look amazing. Yesterday. You came in. You're wearing that beautiful dress, and it just looked incredible. And just the way it hung on you, you look so sexy. I just love the way you've been showing up lately. You're so beautiful. If somebody says to me like, I don't think he's said anything really positive or nice to me in weeks, probably the words of affirmation is theirs, and they're not getting it. Acts of service. Women sometimes I love that it's an act of service. If she's bugging you to clean the garage out 100 times and you say, yeah, I'm going to get there, and you never do it, watch what happens when you turn around, you just clean that garage out. It's spotless. If she doesn't even notice it, chances are it's not acts of service. If she goes through the moon, like, I cannot believe you cleaned that garage out today. I didn't even, that's amazing. That's an act of service. And then gifts. And gifts do not have to be big diamonds. They don't have to be like, hey, I got us a gift. We're on our way to all expense paid to Hawaii. It's really, they're moments of thoughtfulness. It's like, I got you a little something. I noticed you're missing this, or I noticed this and bought you this. I noticed this was broken. And, oh, that's very thoughtful of you. So in that little group of 5 is usually the top 1 or 2 that really light you up, and the 1 or 2 in which you express yourself.
So at the end of the show, I'll actually show the quiz, but let's go into your website right now.
Okay.
So
you're so high tech. You're just like, people do not even have to click now. They're just can read. So you are on actually the page that's focused on my new program that's coming up at the end of the month, which is called the Online Dating Recipe. And this is something I put together to walk people through not organic, but positive process to prepare and step into the world of online dating. And you and I were talking beforehand. I said, I like to use the food analogy because, when you are going to have a positive experience online dating, it's like cooking a big meal. You want to actually get it, do a good job. You want to feel good after. You don't want to be sitting down with indigestion or having a food allergy or a reaction to some food. You want it to be a positive experience. And so many people just say, they're sitting around with their girlfriends and somebody says let's get you on Bumble. It's like, okay. And they pull 4 pictures from it. Write this, and that's a good picture. And then bam, swipe. He's cute. He's cute. He's cute. That's sort of like walking into your kitchen and then going I'm hungry. Let's see what's in the fridge. I got some frozen hash browns up here, and I got this. Let's throw this together. You might be able to pull together a bit of a meal, depending how your fridge is. But for the most part, it's kind of like thrown together, and you're taking your chances. So for me, and it was really stepping back as I got to the world of online dating and thinking, how do I make this work for me, as opposed to feel like I'm, floating on the surf. Where's the current going to take me now? And so I think I put together a really nice recipe, and it's fun, and it's a small group program. It's unisex, so this first one's going to be for women, and I will coach them through how to nail that online dating process. So it's fun, because most people are terrified, or they hate it, or they don't even want you to bring up it. So I'm not going online. I'm never going back online. You wouldn't believe the people I met. And we can manage that process. We don't have to be victims to it.
So I'm going to do an announcement really quick. So if anyone would like to comment, make sure that you go to Ask Cindy Connector Live on Facebook. You're also going to go to StreamYard.com/Facebook. So both platforms will marry, and we could actually see your comments. So I want to talk about boundaries. Tell us all about that.
Well, I am blessed to have a daughter who's an amazing women's coach, and she taught me this process. She's incredible. Katie L. O'Connor is her hashtag on Instagram. And Katie works with women in empowerment processes. And she was talking to me about boundaries and how important it is that if you don't have healthy boundaries, if you don't stick to your boundaries and your boundaries are leaky and you say it's a boundary, but it's not really a boundary, that's really a recipe for building up resentment. And I don't know if you've been in a situation, I've been in one. I've actually been in one recently where something happened, and the issue wasn't really the issue. The issue sort of triggered something, but then there was a litany of like 10 other things where something hadn't worked out. And I thought to myself, like, we're really digging up stuff from like a long time ago. Well, we do that because it sits with us. There was a moment in time where a boundary was crossed, where we didn't clear and sort of move past that. And then over time, that just layers in resentment. And then resentment leads obviously to anger. You got a whole bunch of resentment, then all of a sudden you have some anger. And then they always say the issue is never the issue. Usually what happens is something pops up and then bam. So boundaries are little markers, and they give you an opportunity for personal growth and for being really clear about what works for you. And the more that when a boundary is pressed or it's crossed, the more that you deal with it in a constructive way, the less likely you're going to have any resentment in the relationship. And resentment is a killer. It's toxic energy. You have a lot of resentment. You don't want to sleep with your partner. You don't want to spend time with them. You're waiting for the next event where they're going to let you down. So to your point, boundaries are critical, having healthy boundaries.
So for me, I'm a 55-year-old female, and a lot of my friends have dated all the wrong men, ones that weren't really in that abundance mindset, not really that twin flames where you're really feeling it. What is your number one tip to not keep on doing the same thing? You need to break that cycle, because as we get older, we're wondering, well, what did I do for the last 35 years? What did I do wrong?
In my opinion, that's an attachment to a certain feeling that you associate with relationship. Yes. So I like to feel bad in relationships. So I'm going to choose the same person that sometimes makes me feel good, but for the most time makes me feel bad. Why is that? Well, bad is kind of where I'm used to feeling. I'm used to feeling insecure, anxious. I'm used to feeling that I'm walking on eggshells because that's what I associate with relationship. So it's sometimes habitual. It's sometimes that you're actually hoping that the next one you'll be able to work through. The first two, I didn't really get it right, but this person's like them, but I can work through that. So it's about understanding what it is about that relationship that's serving you. And sometimes it's a matter of thinking, it's not necessarily going to serve you in a good way, but it might remind you of a feeling you have. Sometimes it's like, oh, I feel this the same way I used to feel when I was at home with my dad. My dad was aloof. My dad was disconnected. My dad could be harsh and critical. I loved my dad. I'm kind of used to that environment. So I've picked a man who's, disconnected, aloof, who's not very attentive. He's not very thoughtful. But when he is, boy, I recognize how beautiful it is. It's like you're celebrating the 5% of the time that he's actually in relationship with you, and it feels good because that's what you're used to. But what if you were deserved of 90, 95% of the feeling? And they go, is that possible? I don't think those relationships exist. So it's really not about choosing the wrong man. It's understanding why you want to choose the feelings that you have in that relationship. He's just a way in which you're projecting those feelings.
And it all comes back to boundaries, which we were talking about earlier. Yeah, if we don't know what the boundaries are crossed a lot in relationships. Like example for me, my parents always had a toxic relationship. So for most of my adult or dating time, I've always dated someone who was toxic, talked down to me, all that. And about 6 or 7 years ago, I told myself, no, I'm not going to be in that. I'm going to move forward. I'm going to step outside of that. Because we learn from our parents. Our parents are our mentors. So we don't know, as kids, we don't know anything different. We see how our parents are. We think that that's how a relationship's supposed to be. So how do we break that cycle for someone who is in that similar situation?
Coming back to what we just talked about, it's first of all having a vision for the kind of relationship you feel you deserve. And that's also about understanding what your non-negotiables are. So I'll give you an example. Like a non-negotiable exercise I often do with my clients is, what are your 5 non-negotiables? And I ask them to list the things that it's like, if you don't have this in a relationship, the relationship isn't going to last. It's not the kind of relationship you want. So they put this down. It's like, great. So these are these are the irrevocable. Like, these are the things. And they say, okay, well, the theory is that you need at least 4 of those to have a good relationship. You could be working on the 5th, but you got to have most of them. So one of them might be, I want to be treated like a queen. I want to be feel like I'm the only woman in my partner's life, that all of his eyes are directed to me, that there's nobody else in his sort of sphere of view. Because before she was in a relationship with somebody who was always flirtatious and never paid attention to her, or her father was always had girlfriends, or whatever it is. But she says, like, I want that to feel like I'm the one. I want him to be able to provide for me. I feel like, I still am old fashioned. I like the idea that he could carry, 60, 70% of the weight. Somehow that, like, he's making things happen for me. Might be another one. I love the fact that and one of mine is that they get along with their family is dear to them, and their extended family is dear to them. So if you do your non-negotiables, and you can't do them with your partner in mind, you have to just do them. Then you sit down and you look at where you are in relationship with the person you've chosen. And it's remarkable the number of people who have an idea of what they want and what they deserve and what's critical, and they only have 1 or 2 of those items with the person they've chosen. And you say, like, it's no wonder you feel upset or frustrated, or you just can't seem to sort of get past things. Like, you weren't set up for success in the first place. I think of somebody, a friend of mine, who was deeply in love with a man, and he was a sculptor. And a good year would have been $25,000 that he would have earned. But he was very resourceful, very frugal, but he was a loving guy. For years, she was like, he's such a sweet man. He's a great guy. We have a great time. And part of her was like, I work really, really hard, and like, I'm carrying the weight, and sometimes I'm paying his rent, and she realized, like, it's one of the fundamentals of what I want in a relationship is a man to be able to care for me, and know that I can count on somebody, and I know that I'll never have that with him. So it didn't mean she loved him any less. It just meant that he was not likely going to be her life partner. So these non-negotiables are really important. And I suspect if you talk to some of your girlfriends who are kind of in and out of a relationship, and they do that non-negotiables, then you say, so let's hold that up to your current relationship. They might find that, oh, I'm actually 2 or 3 short. Here's what I did this recently with one of my clients, and here was amazing things. He listed the 5, and they all seemed like totally respectable. Like, I'd love to have some intimate contact on a regular basis. I want to enjoy my partner. And then when we went through the list, there were 4 missing.
Oh, wow.
And the only one that was there was a good mother and great to my kids. And yet he was still in the relationship. So it was like, how do you, and he was unhappy. And that's when you realize that some people, it's not about, they've chosen unhappiness. And it's not because they want to be unhappy. They're afraid of the change. They're afraid of letting go. I'm afraid. There's no one in my family who's been divorced. I don't know what it's like to be alone at 45. I've been with this person for 20 years. I'm afraid to lose connection with my kids. So it's not that the relationship's holding them, it's that they're terrified of the alternative. But that was a lose-lose situation, because he wanted something in his life. He wasn't getting it. And yet he chose not to make it change. Wow. I mean, talk about, like, that is painful. Like, it was painful just to coach him. It's like, wow. So, knowing your non-negotiables and then living with them. It's a key thing.
So we have a few minutes. So one thing I want to talk about also is, I think it's really important to argue healthy. Couples are going to argue, but it's so important to not bring up the past of what someone did, 10 years ago or something like that. That really helps with when you're dealing with a certain situation, a disagreement. What are your thoughts on that?
Sorry, my camera's moving. My thoughts are, it's a pretty straightforward process if you think about it. And the reason I call like this is practical masculinity, because men like it simple. If you use the word I in most of your feedback, you're going to get much further along. So we'll give you an example. Instead of, you called me this, you came in late, you did this, you did that, you did this, you did that. If a man hears that, he's definitely going to stand up and
Shut
defend
down.
himself, shut down and say, like, he's going to go into debate mode, or he's going to shut down, he's going to walk away, or he's going to go into, like, I didn't. He'll argue the details. No, you said I came in at 10 after 8. I actually came in at 8:05. And it's like, that's not the issue. The issue, as opposed to, I feel really let down when you say you're going to, when I feel really let down. I was expecting you to be home at 8. I put all the food out and I looked up at the clock and it was 10 to 9. And I just felt like I just wasn't important to you. Like I didn't matter. I didn't get a text from you. And I'm feeling really sad right now. Now, any guy that hears that, if he can't say, like, yeah, I own that, I'm really sorry, I don't want you to feel that way, then he's probably not the guy for you. If he just turns away, because that is not about what he did. That was about how she felt in that situation. And if a man is in his masculine, he's going to always want you to be happy. He wants to, that's his job. It's to protect you, to keep you safe, to love you. But you have to be willing to be vulnerable, to talk about your feelings. And so that would be the number one thing I would suggest in terms of fair argument. Start with the I, stick with the I, and put it out there. And resolve one issue versus the other. So when she says, like, this is what her feelings are, if there's something else that you're pissed off at, you don't get to get that one resolved until you resolve the first one. It's not like, yeah, but then this morning you were pissed off at me and you said this to me, and I'm like, I didn't really even want to be here, to be honest. You should have apologized. It's like, we don't get to do that one until I talk about what I feel like. Yeah, I'm really sorry. And then later, he says, and if, when you're ready, there's something that's kind of troubling me. What? This morning when I left, I felt really shitty because, I was like, oh. But if you try to blend them and one's conditional on the other, or you're talking about yous, you're not going to have much fun that night. There won't be a glass of wine and some Netflix. It's not going to happen. There'll be separate rooms.
Yeah. Wow. So for women who are constantly having problems with dating, what is your best tip on that? And so we don't date the same person over and over. It's kind of going over what we talked about earlier, but just in closing, what is your best tip on that to start telling yourself that you're abundant? And also, you have to love yourself. There's a lot of people who don't love themselves and they go into a relationship and that relationship is doomed from the beginning.
Know your red flags and don't sort of talk yourself out of them. If you really get honest with your girlfriends and things sort of kind of unravel, there were probably red flags, like, early, that they overlooked. I thought he was different. I know we had this kind of disagreement, but like, he apologized or whatever. It's like, and I don't mean to be, I'm just making a difference between the way I talk and somebody else talks. But the point is that they probably knew something wasn't really, wasn't really kind of happening there. So I would say just don't ignore the red flags. That saying, when somebody shows you who they really are, believe them. And don't keep giving them more and more chances. And as I sit here, what's happening is my camera is slowly dropping. I feel like that guy in the elevator is like,
oh, that's okay. I'm about to close out anyways. So I'm gonna put you in a green room so I can close the show. Do you have anything else you would like to tell my audience?
No, I love the opportunity to talk about relationships and men and women, and encouraging people not to necessarily make the mistakes I did, because that just feels good when you've learned something and you can pass on that information by way of a lesson. So that was a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to put you in the green room and I'll be right back.
Thank you.
Well, there you go, guys. Make sure that you go to Kevin's website and you could actually check this out. Oh, this way. And click the link. You could actually take the test. This is the singles test. There's also for couples. There's for children, young adults. And it's so important to live every day in abundance. Surround yourself by 5 amazing people. Don't be in any toxic environment. So the people that you surround yourself with, that is who you become. This is Cindy at Ask Cindy Connector Live, and I'll see you on Friday. Have a wonderful day.